What's good, Fight family? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi. It takes place at 9 a.m. tomorrow if you're over here on the West Coast. Probably really early wherever you are around the world, which is solid. You know, the UK fans finally get to watch a card at a regular hour, to my knowledge, which is good for them, you know. They're hardcores and they always have to put up with bullshit, which is honestly, it's pretty lame for them. But we have a really stacked card. A lot of fights fell off and it's still stacked as hell. It kind of even almost, it feels more like a pay-per-view than some of the pay-per-views we've had this year. So without further ado, let's get right into the first fight of the night. Sandhagen Dumas taking on Denis Tiuliulin. Denis Tiuliulin is coming off of a couple of losses. He has a really horrible record in general. If this guy loses, he's probably getting cut. Sandhagen Dumas is coming off of a first-round knockout to Nurmagomedov, and I put air quotes because he was getting eye-poked, and it kind of seemed like that's really what made it so he got finished. Like, the officials just allowed it to happen. It was really weird. Whatever. I think Sandhagen Dumas has shown to have honestly underrated offensive grappling. He took down, who was it? He took down Cody Brundage easier than Bo Nickel did, which doesn't even make sense to me. And it's probably because he was threatening on the feet at first, but he still did it. He still controlled him on the ground better than Bo was at first. And I think that's going to be his recipe to success in this fight. Denis Tiuliulin has an obvious weakness on the ground. If Sandhagen Dumas can just start on the feet with the 1-2s, kind of just get him guessing and then mix up the grappling, it should be an easy night for him. I want Sandhagen Dumas to build up some wins so he can stay around because we need some personalities building up at middleweight. It used to be so poppin' with the new personalities like Izzy, Poatan, Marvin Vettori at a time, Paulo Costa, Sean Strickland, but now it's like it's mellowed out. We have our guys at the top. We need people to fill out the bottom of the division. I think Sandhagen Dumas gets this one done. I'm going to say by a decision, but I could definitely see a finish. And we move on up the card. Jai Herbert, Indian, Leon Edwards taking on Rolando Bedoya. Bedoya, if you guys don't know, basically his claim to fame in the UFC is that he lost a close fight to Chaos Williams in his debut, and a lot of people were impressed by that. I was as well. He then follows that up in his sophomore effort against Song Kanan and looked terrible. So I see why he's the underdog now. I'm kind of surprised it's still that close odds because Jai Herbert is forged by the UFC. You know, he's the only person that's made it look even remotely close against Ilia Topuria. You know, he dropped him with a fucking head kick, bro. No one has put damage on Ilia like that. Jai is lethal on the feet. Sometimes I feel like he makes fights a little bit too close, but I feel like if he's really on one, he should be firing off on Rolando Bedoya. Bedoya might be able to catch him because Jai is chinny, and it feels like a gust of wind can knock that dude down. But Rolando just hasn't shown to be as dynamic on the feet. I think Jai Herbert is just a bit leagues above. So I'm going to trust Jai Herbert to get this one done by a decision. Rolando's tough. I could see him getting TKO'd, but I think it's just going to be a close matchup that Jai Herbert slightly outpoints. Moving on up the card, Victoria Dudikova taking on Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes is not bad. This isn't the worst underdog to pick if you do want to splash on some underdog money. But Victoria Dudikova is undefeated, hasn't lost in the UFC yet. She's shown some weaknesses that I don't think are going to be exploited by any of these women outside of the top 15, or maybe even all the way up until you get to like the top 7. Because realistically, strawweight isn't as stacked as people like to say. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of people that fill up that division that I think could be easily beaten. Victoria Dudikova just happened to match up with another one of them. I don't think Sam Hughes is going to be able to utilize her wrestling, which she would need to, and just hold Victoria on the ground and, you know, maybe try to chase a submission or ground and pound. I don't see that happening. I think Victoria is leagues above on the feet, obviously, and she's going to be able to keep it there. I trust Victoria winning this fight by a decision. It should be a safe prop. And we move on up the card. One of the best fights of the whole night. Guram Kutateladze taking on Jordan Vucenic. I had to learn about this guy yesterday on stream, so shout out to y'all that were there and that like helped me find some of his highlights and just think to even look up this guy because I didn't know too much about him to begin with. I knew that he beat Morgan Sherrier. I saw that fight and that Morgan Sherrier got signed first. So I remember that drama. But now that I've checked this guy out, I really like his striking. I like the fact that he has like all those tats and he seems like a personality. I like unique people like that in the sport in general. But he's happening to take on Guram Kutateladze, who, you know, aside from Elvis Brenner and who was it, Damir Ismagulov in another close fight, aside from those two guys, and even still, I'm only going to say Elvis Brenner because Elvis Brenner went through the fire and knocked him out. That's the only guy to like really withhold Guram's pressure that I've seen so far. Guram has a lot of really close losses on his record. I think on the feet, this fight is way closer than the odds reflect. I think Jordan Vucenic has a legitimate chance to win this fight. I just think this is such a tough draw in your first matchup. Guram's going to be bigger than him in there. Jordan Vucenic is a featherweight coming up in weight. Like, bro, give him a fair shot at featherweight. Why are we doing this? But you know what? maybe he shows out, maybe he builds even more hype and fucking retires Guram, because if Guram loses this, bro, you started your UFC run so piss poor compared to what your expectations were. Because we all thought after his debut, this guy's going right to the top. You're Khamzat's main training partner, and you come in here and you beat 20-0 fucking Mateusz Gamrot. Like, that's wild. Even though I didn't necessarily think he won that, that's still crazy. So, you know, this is going to be a tough one to call, but I'm going to go with Guram getting this one done by a decision. I think he's just going to be too much on the feet, and he's going to be able to mix in wrestling too. Moving on up the card, Shamil the Blob Gaziev taking on Dontel Mays. Dontel is always decent underdog money because he is a slept-on heavyweight, but the dude just makes poor decisions. I think Shamil Gaziev is a bit more active in there. Active is not even the right word. Consistent. He's more consistent with what he does. He looked horrible in his last fight, and I'm so disappointed that I didn't see that coming. I'm going to trust him here in the rebound against Dontel Mays, but if you trust that his gas tank is piss poor and he's not going to have anything to give Dontel after the first round, throw that money on Dontel, because he's not going to be anything higher than a plus 190, I feel like, even live. And we move on up the card. Muhammad Yahya taking on Cowboy Fernandez. For some weird reason, I want to call Muhammad Yahya because everyone's counting him out, and I am, just because of how bad he looked against Trevor Peek. You can't look like that against somebody like Trevor Peek on the feet. But this is what, like, the problem is. Cowboy Fernandez being a minus 380 just does not make sense to me. He's not that much better than him. He does the fundamentals better, for sure. But, like, Muhammad Yahya can still land on him. You know, this is still a fight at the end of the day. God, I really don't want to look back on this and regret it. I'm going to side with Cowboy Fernandez. I'm going to pick the favorite here, even though I maybe shouldn't. My gut is telling me that a plus 300 for Yahya, it's a little bit too much. But, yeah, Cowboy does look just better in the fundamentals. I think he can mix up the fight as well, bring it to the ground. I don't think Muhammad Yahya can do that. So I'm going to trust Cowboy Fernandez to get this one done by a decision. We move on. I think this is the last fight on the prelims. Azamat Murzakanov taking on Alonzo Menafield, and we're now in the rankings, 14 and 15. Alonzo Menafield was on a pretty good streak until he got smoked in like 10 seconds by Carlos Ulberg in his last fight. And Azamat Murzakanov is just undefeated. And to my knowledge, I'm trying to remember who I heard this from. I think the Weasel in his video said that Azamat Murzakanov has gotten a knockdown in all of his UFC fights and in his Contender Series fight. That's really impressive. When I see contenders that are doing stuff like that, akin to like Israel Adesanya on the come up, akin to Conor McGregor on the come up, akin to Peyton Talbot right now, when I see people that are doing that, I tend to trust them. He's just looked more consistent as well. Like, that's why he's undefeated. Am I smoking something? I'm looking at the UFC's official website right now, and it says Azamat Murzakanov is a plus 170 against Alonzo Menafield. And I just saw the odds the other day, and they were flipped. So did somebody just drop crazy money on Alonzo? Like, what is happening here? That's sus. I don't know if this is just a glitch or what. Let me know down below if you guys see that too. I'm going to trust Azamat to get this one done. No way those odds are correct. What the fuck? Azamat should be able to knock him out. But let's be real. Alonzo has good wrestling. Maybe not better grappling, but good wrestling, and he has power in his hands. So it's a good underdog if he is actually the underdog. Now we move up into the main card. My favorite fight of the night, hands down. Joel Alvarez taking on Elvis Brenner. For those of you that have watched my channel for a bit, you know Elvis Brenner was my 2023 male fighter of the year, prospect of the year. He came in, won 3 fights, and he looked really good doing it. Joel Alvarez was another one of those guys that was always on my prospect radar. He just doesn't fight frequently enough at all. It's been like one every year, and that's just not good enough in this division. Lightweight, you cannot be fighting like that. Elvis Brenner is so active. He has more power in his hands, although Joel is a little bit more technical with the striking, and I could see exploiting weaknesses in Elvis. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purely, I don't know who has it, but I'll lean towards Joel Alvarez from what I've seen. But I could see Elvis Brenner still, winning in the scrambles. He looked good against Midibek Oralbai, even in certain wrestling scrambles, which caught me off guard. He's a dog as well. I think both these guys have that dog in him, but I think it's just way more prominent in Brenner. And Brenner's sitting at plus 160, so I have to take Elvis Brenner. That's my guy. Until I see him just getting absolutely smoked by people, I'm going to trust him. Even against Midibek, he had good moments. Moving on up the card, Mackenzie Dern taking on Lupi Godinez. My girl Lupi, I got to go with the Mexican. I'm going with Lupi Godinez. She's just looked better on the feet, She honestly just looks better in general every fight. Like, she got me blushing. Shit. Mackenzie Dern, too, bro. Have you guys seen that fucking weigh-in? Lord. Dana knew what he was doing posting that on his story. But Mackenzie Dern, she's just too inconsistent. As good of shape as she's in, I don't think that she's taking her career nearly as seriously as Lupi. I think Lupi wants to be the next Mexican champion. She dropped a close fight to Verna. Verna is now probably going to be fighting for a belt soon. We now see that how good Verna Jandiroba is. She's at a next stage in her career, so I'm not going to give her too much for that loss. I think Lupi Godinez can bounce back, get a good decision win against Mackenzie Dern, throw her off every time she's trying to out-grapple her, or just like enforce the grappling, keep it in the stand-up department, whip leg kicks. Mackenzie's not going to look good after like a round and a half. I'm going Lupi Godinez. This is one of my locks of the card. Then we move on, Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa. Oh no. Tony, bro. Look, the UFC has a weird way of working. When a fighter is about to break a record, sometimes they finally come back, get a win or get a loss. That's usually how it goes. You know, Usman about to break Anderson Silva's record, boom, head kick in the 5th round. Tony Ferguson about to break the losing streak record, maybe catches Chiesa in a fucking Darce, which is Chiesa's weakness. Or maybe catches Chiesa with that right hand that he's been catching Bobby and Michael Chandler and some of these people with even outside of his prime. Look, Tony realistically is just a shell of his former self, and it's so depressing to say. Like, I really hate it. I hate saying that Tony Ferguson is probably going to get taken down and just bodied by Michael Chiesa and just manhandled. Look, Chiesa's weight cut is tough. Chiesa should not be a minus 750. The fact that he just keeps swelling doesn't make sense, man. This is setting up Tony to have a big underdog moment. I want to pick him. I want to be the guy to call Tony's fucking resurgence. But I just don't think it's happening, man. And honestly, the more I talk about it, the more it gets me depressed. So let's just stop talking about this. Michael Chiesa is probably going to win by a submission. Ugh. Gross. Then we move on. Feature fight of the night. Awesome feature fight. Marlon Chito Vera taking on Davison Figueiredo. We've got a top 5 matchup here at bantamweight. Figgy undefeated in the bantamweight division. Marlon Vera coming off of an absolute beatdown against Sean O'Malley. Got the fucking brakes beaten off of that boy. Holy shit, but he still ate it and then didn't even look like he was in a fight like a week later. Marlon is just built differently, bro. Here's my problem. He drops the first round a lot, and in a 3-rounder, you cannot be doing that. 1. 2, he got backpacked by Jose Aldo and held and lost the fight because of that control. And Jose Aldo is a striker, not a fucking jiu-jitsu artist, not a grappler. 3, he is younger than Davison, which catches me off guard. Marlon's not even in his prime yet. He's getting close to it. Figgy is actually exiting his prime. But 3, I feel like Marlon Vera's fight IQ isn't as high as a lot of people seem to think it is. You know, he kind of just looks for that one shot throughout the whole first 2 rounds. And then in the 3rd when he's losing, or in the 5th when he's losing, he picks up pace. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to start to have success, land on Figgy, make him uncomfortable. But it's going to come after a first round that he drops to just being a little bit outstruck on the feet, and a 2nd round that he loses to being outgrappled. So I'm going to trust Davison Figueiredo to get this one done using his grappling, and he trained with Khabib for this dude. So I'm even more confident in Figgy. I think he's going to just continue to go on this bantamweight run and look pretty solid. But hey, look, let's not be surprised if Marlon pulls this one off, because the dude is a big bantamweight. He's much bigger than Figgy, and maybe he will be able to just bully him on the feet. I don't see it, but maybe. Co-main event time, Shara Magomedov taking on Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Shara's coming right back to fight. I like that. He needs to be active because he's honestly not looked as good as like he's hyped up. Now here's my problem. Michelle Oleksiejczuk on paper has grappling that should be able to neutralize Magomed, and boxing that is good enough to, you know, keep it close on the feet. But on Instagram, in some fans' comment section, or like in his own comment section, I don't remember what it was, but a fan asks him if he's going to go to the KSW, like the baby promotion in Poland, after he loses. And Mikhail literally word for word says something along the lines of, if I lose this fight, and it most likely will happen, I'm done with sports forever. I cannot trust a fighter that is thinking like that. Point blank, period. I'm going Shara Magomedov by a finish. Bro, Michelle, you let me down with that, bro. You used to be something in this division. You used to be, you know, something that could have been something, I'll say. Now you're nothing. And, you know, if you pull this one off after that, then this was the biggest fake out in history. Because I'm not trusting you at all. Like 99% I'm going Shara because of that comment. Then we move on to the main event. Goated main event. I just hope nothing happens and they make it to the cage tomorrow, because they made weight already. Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar's at number 10, Corey at number 2, so of course he's getting that fucking mountain privilege from Dana. Umar is now swelled up to a 3-1 favorite. I don't think Corey Sandhagen should be a 250 favorite against any bantamweight on the planet. That's how good he is. He's so battle-tested. Even against somebody like TJ Dillashaw, where, like, you know, he lost the fight on paper. A lot of people thought he won on damage. I kind of lean that way these days. He's still made fights with people that are, like, stylistically hard matchups incredibly close. Even with Peter Yan, he was doing really good. He had moments. My problem is he got out-wrestled by TJ. And TJ is nowhere near the grappler that Umar is. You know, Umar is straight up a wrestler. I feel like if Umar really imposes that game early, he's going to drown out Corey, and it's just going to be something that like snowballs. Corey has to use that movement, that lateral movement, to really like try to make it so Umar's following him and he can land some knees, he can land kicks up the center, maybe to the body, land his 1-2. You know, he has to keep it in his game, and the odds of him keeping it on the feet are way less likely than the odds that Umar can find a way to get it to the ground. And once he gets it there, I don't think Corey's going to have much for him, you know? I think it's going to be a surprisingly disappointing performance to a lot of people because it's going to be a whole lot of control. I could see Umar getting a late submission because I think that Corey Sandhagen, after like being down 3 rounds or 4 rounds, is going to start to get antsy every time he gets taken down. He's going to look to like do some more sporadic shit, take risks, and then Umar's going to find a way to like latch up a choke or something. I really see that happening. I want to lean Corey Sandhagen, but my main event picks are not great this year. It's been so unpredictable. I think I'm just going to trust a couple more favorites now, even though that sometimes bites me in the ass like Leon Edwards. I'm going to trust Umar to get this one done. His wrestling is strong. The guy is a high-level competitor, and this just happens to be like one of the best matchups in the top 5 that he could have been gifted. So thanks, Uncle Dana. We know you did this shit on purpose. Like, you're going to kill my fucking boy Corey from ever being in the title picture, just like you did to so many great fighters throughout their careers. It's disappointing, but yeah, Corey Sandhagen will probably never see a championship. But if he wins this, bro, he gets his title shot, and he is honestly a hard matchup for somebody like Sean O'Malley or Merab Dvalishvili. So either way this goes, I'm excited. Bantamweight is my favorite division. You know, it just continues to have awesome matchups, awesome main events. That's going to be all for my picks today. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'll catch y'all.